just as I mentioned earlier, this is the kind of logo that we use, the kind of beast or logo or shape that we are currently using for our HMC sports team, right? And I wonder if you can come up with something else, something new, right? It can still be a panther, but you know, your own version of a panther instead of ripping someone else like this, ripping off someone else. So in reality, with regards to our select tool that we've been using extensively, the rectangle and ellipse select tool, right? You can actually play around with it with the mode, right? As you can see here, this is the replace the current selection. This is add, subtract, and intersect. So replace means whatever you draw will replace the previous one, right? But you can be a bit more adventurous and, for example, add to the current selection, in which case you can end up with a more interesting pattern rather than just a plain rectangle, right? You can also subtract from the current selection, thereby resulting in something like that. So whatever you select will be subtracted from the current selection. Or you can intersect. Intersect means whatever you selected will intersect, and therefore the most current or the most recent rectangle will intersect with the current selection, meaning in terms of this rectangle that I'm drawing right now, the one on the left, the part on the left will be left out, like that. Right? So that is intersect. You can also do the same with the ellipse select tool, of course. So you can imagine if you play around with this quite a bit, you can end up eventually with interesting shapes. For example, an eye or a panther, and so on. So I'm just going to subtract, for example. So this results in something like that. I can intersect it and have something like that, for example, right? And then it looks like almost like a nonsensical alien or something in my eye. It might look like something else in your eye, right? Okay, once you're done with that, I suggest that you create a new layer, Shift Control N, right? For the pattern, maybe we name it a pattern, right? Okay, then you can color this. You can either use the bucket fill tool and fill it with a foreground color or pattern fill like that, right? Yeah, it looks like a tribal and or alien-ish in my eye, meaning this looks like a mouth, and then this looks like a hollowed out eye or something like that, right? So you can use the bucket fill tool, or you can use the gradient as well. Gradient is where you can have like two colors, right? So you can maybe play around with this and or just play around with the color that you're going to use. Let's say, for example, I'm going to use red and black like that, right? Then I just pull it like this and I'll have the gradient color. Some of you might have already experimented with this, right? So depending on where you start your gradient, you might end up with one color or the other, right? Or you have a bit of a balance of both, right? So you have something like that, right? Okay, let's say I'm happy with this particular pattern. This looks quite Sarawakish or whatever, right? So you can then, for example, scale it, right? So that's a somewhat HMC kind of color. If you look at this, basically I have it inside your notebook, right? So this is a bit of a HMC-ish color, black and red, right? I scale it. Let's say I duplicate it, right? And then I move it around like that. Or I can flip it like this, right? And become something like that, like a butterfly-ish pattern, and I merge it down. Merge down means I just combine it, right? Then I just duplicate the layer, and then move it. So I have a repetition of the same pattern. Duplicate the layer, and then I have something like this, for example. Okay, let's say I'm happy with that, and I merge it down, and then duplicate it some more. Just move it around like that. For example, I try to, right? So I have this kind of a pattern. try and match it. It's not easy to do. For example, let's say I'm happy with this, and I just merge it down. Right. So this is the kind of pattern that we can have for the next part of this exercise, which is manipulation of text, right? So now we see that this pattern is showing through, but I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to name it like the top layer or something, top, right? And I am going to paint it white, right? So now the pattern is no longer showing because it's actually underneath the top layer. This is the top layer. This is the pattern layer, and the top layer is, you know, closing everything up like that. So I'm just gonna create a text layer, and I'm going to use HMC, for example, HMC. Right, and HMC is just there, and I'm going to manipulate the size of that so that I have like a very large HMC smack in the center of my layout. So this is impact condense. Impact condense is a quite thick kind of font or typeface, right? Can I say I'm happy with that? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a layer mask here, and it's a white layer mask, right? Which means that everything will be opaque, meaning everything will be visible. But I'm going to make a hole using this HMC layer. So I'm just going to duplicate that. I'm just going to copy that, Control C, right? And then go to the layer mask, and then just going to paste that, Control V, right? So the layer mask is actually, right? So what's happening here is that I actually have the HMC smack on the HMC smack on the layer mask, thereby making that part transparent, right? So I can do other things. For example, I can go to the pattern, or I can go to the background and have a slight bit of a color. For example, here you can't really make out that it's HMC, but it can be a pretty nice design. Right, for example, I'm just going to go with that color. Let's go with something lighter. Let's say this shade, for example. Okay, right? And I'm just going to color the background a particular color, right? Thereby resulting in that. Not the nicest of layout, but something original, meaning say something from you. And I wonder if you can come up with something much nicer than that.